Surprisingly, some of the first people questioned on the day of discovery of the Range Rover containing the bodies of Pat Tate, Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe were the parents of Leah Betts, father Paul and stepmom Janet. But just over 6 hours after the discovery of the Range Rover, armed police were called to pull over a vehicle containing one of Pat Tate's old friends. But first, the statement of Paul Betts. I am the father of Leah Betts, who died on the 16th 11th 95 as a result of taking an ecstasy tablet at her 18th birthday party. I have today been visited by 842 Shakespeare of Chelmsford CID in relation to a shooting that has occurred in Rettendon near Chelmsford involving 3 males who have been found murdered in a Range Rover motor vehicle with gunshot wounds. I have been asked to account for my movements between Wednesday the 6th of the 12th 95 and Thursday the 7th of the 12th 95. I am happy to cooperate with the police in this matter. At 8 a.m. on the 6th of the 12th 95, I arose from my sleep at home, and at 8:40 I took my son William to school, returning home at 9:30. I remained at home with Janet, leaving at 12:30 approximately to visit my boat in Malden. I went alone, leaving Janet at home. I returned home at 2:30. In between these times, I quickly visited the Queen's Head at Hive Quay, Malden at 1:30, and went to Munden Solid Fuels in Munden to collect some coal at 2 o'clock. I returned home at 2:30. I met Janet at home. At 3:45 p.m, I left home and travelled to collect William from school in Malden. I was on my own. Janet stayed at home. At 4:30 p.m, I returned home with William and then did an interview with Anglian TV at home. I remained at home with Janet and William for that evening. We finished the TV interview at around about 6 o'clock. I'd also like to add that my stepdaughter was at our home all day on the 6th of the 12th 95 because she was ill. She normally lives in Dagenham during term time, but she's been staying with us since either Sunday the 3rd of the 12th 95 or Monday the 4th the 12th 95 because she is unwell. Between 6 p.m. on the 6th of the 12th 95 and 10 p.m. I remained at home with Janet, my stepdaughter and William. We had dinner together. At 9:30 p.m, I watched a TV programme called Keeping Up Appearances on BBC One, which finished at 8 o'clock. At the conclusion of the programme, I left home with my stepdaughter and drove her to her sister's address in Chelmsford. Her sister that lives at that address is also my stepdaughter. Emily and I travelled to Chelmsford in my maroon-coloured Lada Cossack motor vehicle. We arrived at Chelmsford between 10:30 p.m. and 12:45 p.m, and I stayed at that house with Wendy, her partner Norman, and my stepdaughter for about 5 minutes, leaving at about 10:50 p.m. I drove directly back home via Danbury Lakes to Blackney via Back Road to Cox Clark's to Purley and home to Lashington. The reason I went on this back road route was because I wanted to test out my 4-wheel drive on my car as the roads were very icy and slushy. It was snowing at the time. I rode home between 11:30 p.m. and 12:45 p.m. Janet was still up and in the kitchen. William was asleep in bed. Janet had remained home to look after William. The reason why I took my stepdaughter home to Chelmsford was because she was leaving Chelmsford at 10 a.m. on the 7th of the 12th 95 with her stepsister to travel to London to appear on a TV show to do with Leah's death. Having arrived home at between 11:30 p.m. and 12:45 p.m. on the 6th of the 12th, Janet retired to bed at about 12 midnight. I fed our animals and I retired to bed at somewhere between 12:30 and 1 a.m. on the 7th of the 12th. I remained asleep at home in bed with Janet until 8 a.m. on the 7th of the 12th 95 when I awoke to take William to school. Between 10:50 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. on the 7th of the 12th, when I was travelling alone back to Lashington from Chelmsford, I did not travel near the Rettendon area. I did not know anything about the circumstances of the deaths of the 3 men in the Range Rover in a lane at Rettendon. I have been asked if I knew anyone by the name of Tate, Rolfe or Tucker. The only name I've ever heard of before amongst these names is Tucker. I have heard of the name Tony Tucker for the following reasons, all in connection with the work I have been undertaking with the media following my daughter's death. I have received information recently that a Tony Tucker, whose address I do not know, was a drugs dealer. I have passed this information previously to the police, most recently when I visited the Police Inquiry Incident Office at South Woodham Ferris Police Station on Monday the 27th 11th 95. This is the only name that I've ever heard of before. I am the holder of a shotgun certificate, valid between the 17th of the 6th 95 to the 16th of the 6th 2000. I was a Metropolitan Police officer for 28 years, during which time I shot for the Metropolitan Police in competition. I currently have the following shotguns in my possession: 6 12-bore shotguns, 1 20-bore shotgun, 3 14 10-inch shotguns. Therefore, the total of shotguns in my possession is 13. I do not have any access to any Section 1 firearms. I do not hold a Section 1 firearms certificate. In addition to the above, my wife is also the holder of a firearms certificate. She has access to all the above guns and also a side-by-side Mark Callio shotgun, which is included in the 13 total. The last time any of these weapons were fired was about 4 weeks ago. I can be certain of this because I have not been involved in any shooting of game, etc. since Leah collapsed at her party, which was on the 11th of 11th 95. I am happy for the police to take any of these shotguns and shotgun cartridges for examination. I would estimate that I have 250 cartridges, mostly of 12 bore, some 20 bore, some 9mm, and a small amount of 1410mm. I am happy to assist the police in their investigation. My clothing that I was wearing all day on the 6th of the 12th 95 was as follows: a patterned jumper, patterned shirt, green trousers, maroon pimp soles. I have given these to the police. Also questioned was Paul's wife and stepmom to Leah, Janet Betts. Also from the 7th of the 12th 95, Janet Betts' statement is as follows: approximately 3:30 p.m. on Wednesday the 6th of the 12th 95, I was at home with Paul and my stepdaughter. At this time, Paul left to pick up William from the Lower Plum School in Malden. William usually gets the bus to and from school, but as this was William's first day back to school, Paul had taken him in the morning and also went to pick him up. Paul went off in our Lada Kozak, colour maroon. Paul returned home approximately 4:30 p.m. with William. Paul and I had an appointment with the reporter Timothy Evans and a photographer from Anglian TV. The appointment was for 4:30, but probably due to the icy weather conditions they didn't arrive till 5 p.m. Paul and I were interviewed by Timothy Evans regarding the tragic death of our daughter Leah Betts and our feelings about a recent poster campaign. Paul actually did all the talking for this interview, although I was present throughout. Whilst this was taking place, our stepdaughter was upstairs in her bedroom, and William spent most of the time making a snowman before going upstairs to do his homework. The interview lasted approximately 1 hour to 1 hour and 30 minutes. The film crew then left, leaving myself, Paul, my stepdaughter, and William in the house. Our stepdaughter and I watched Star Trek while Paul cooked the dinner. The four of us ate our dinner by approximately 8 p.m. I washed up the dishes and my stepdaughter got ready to go out. She was going to spend the night with my eldest daughter, who lives in Chelmsford. The two of them were going to be interviewed by Granada TV in relation to Leah's death from a show called Speakeasy. I recall that throughout the evening we received several calls from various people. We had several other calls, although I can't remember who they were from. I can recall that just as Paul was preparing to take my daughter round to her sister's house, he received a phone call. I can't remember who from. He was on the phone for approximately 25 minutes and finished the call just as the programme Keeping Up Appearances came on TV. Paul, my daughter and William and I watched Keeping Up Appearances until just before the end, approximately 9:55 p.m, when we received a further phone call. I answered the phone call and it was my daughter's boyfriend. He was phoning up to see how long my daughter was going to be. Paul and my daughter then drove to my other daughter's house in the Larder Cossack. At this time, Paul was wearing a red and blue check shirt, a multicoloured jumper, including brown, red, green and several others, maroon canvas shoes. I believe he was wearing grey trousers and a black leather jacket. Paul returned home approximately 1 hour later. I remember thinking that was a reasonable time for Paul to drive to Chelmsford, have a coffee and drive back home, taking into account the road conditions. I would add Paul may have changed his trousers throughout the day as he'd been chopping wood earlier, but he did not change any other clothes. By the time Paul returned home, William had gone to bed. Paul fed the dogs and I went to bed approximately 11:30 to 11:45. Paul came up 15 to 30 minutes later. Paul and I remained in bed until the alarm went off about 7:50 a.m. the following day. Paul got up and made some tea, got William out of bed and took him to school, leaving house about 8:45 a.m. I left the house about 9 a.m. and I had a doctor's appointment about 9:20 in Southminster. I only woke up once last night, approximately 3 a.m. Since Leah's death, I have not been sleeping very soundly. I do not believe that Paul could have left the house without waking me, as the dogs would have started barking. I have seen the doctor about my sleeping problem, but I am not receiving any medication for it. To the best of my knowledge, Paul remained in bed with me from about midnight until the alarm went off, about 7:45 a.m. I am the owner of a 12-ball double-barrel side-by-side shotgun. It is an old gun and I do not know the make. I have held a shotgun licence for approximately 10 years. Paul owns several shotguns, but I don't know the makes as I do not ever use these guns. The last time I fired my shotgun was in August 1995. I understand that the police are investigating a murder where 3 men were shot dead in a lane in Rettendon. I've been asked by DC Cole if the names Tate, Rolfe or Tucker mean anything to me. The only name that means anything to me is Tucker. This name was mentioned to me by one of the officers investigating the circumstances surrounding my daughter's Leah's death. I did not go to Rettendon on either Wednesday the 6th of the 12th 95 or Thursday the 7th 95. The last time I was in Rettendon was on Sunday the 3rd of the 12th 95. On this occasion, Paul, William and I drove through Rettendon on our way home from visiting Leah's grave in Great Burstead. During the Wednesday the 6th 12th 95, I was wearing black leggings, a blue t-shirt with my maroon jumper, beige patterned socks and carpet slippers. Paul and I wore the clothes described in the statement during the TV interview with Timothy Evans. I also own a red Rover Metro. I am happy for the police to examine my shotgun for the purposes of investigating this offence. The reasons for the Betts being pulled in for questioning clearly being the connection between the death of Leah Betts and Tony Tucker and the pill that was sold in Raquel's that eventually ended up in the hands of Leah Betts. But as mentioned earlier, just 6 hours after the discovery of the Range Rover containing the bodies, around about 2:15, armed police were called to a pulled over vehicle containing one of Pat Tate's old friends. The following is a statement of Roger Ian Watson from the 7th of the 12th, 95. Around about 2:20 p.m. on Thursday the 7th of the 12th, 95, I was on traffic police duty in company with PC Willis when, as a result of information received, we attended the Five Bells roundabout on the A13 in Vange. Once there, we saw and began to follow a green Mitsubishi Shogun motor jeep from Basildon towards Fobbin. We had armed ourselves due to the information we have received regarding this vehicle and occupants, and it was our intent to follow this vehicle until other armed units caught up with us. However, the vehicle drove up to a car sales area on the Five Bells roundabout, Fobbin side, near to a petrol station, where the car came to a halt. As the occupants began to get out, both myself and PC Willis got out of the police car and shouted for the 3 occupants to stay where they were and not to move. We covered them with our police-issue pistols until assistance arrived. The first suspect, A person I now know to be Ian Redding, who had been the rear seat passenger on the near side, was gestured to join us at the rear of the police car. This he did and was handcuffed by another officer and led to safety. I informed him that he was under arrest on suspicion of murder. Next was the driver to get him to the rear of the police car, a person I now know to be Barry Dorman. The third person, the front seat passenger, was dealt with by other colleagues who had joined us. All three were conveyed to Basildon Police Station and later booked in by the custody sergeant. And the following is the statement of John Martin, also from the 7th of the 12th, 95. At around about 2:15 on Thursday the 7th of the 12th, 95, I was on duty on mobile traffic patrol in company with PC 2073. We were static at the Five Bells roundabout, engaged as an armed response unit in company with Northern ARV CT92. Due to a radio message concerning a suspect vehicle, a Mitsubishi Shogun, we attended the Mirko petrol station situated a short distance away on the A13. At this location, I saw the suspect vehicle containing 3 male persons. One of these persons, described as 5'10", with short dark brown sweat black hair, clean shaven, wearing a purple ski suit, was already out of the vehicle. PC Abbott instructed him to walk to the safe side of the police vehicle, which he agreed to do. I made a courtesy search of him. This male I now know as Graham George Law, and handcuffed him. I then said, "You are under arrest on suspicion of murder and possession of a firearm in a public place with intent to endanger life." After caution, he replied, "It's nothing to do with me, I'm innocent." He was then conveyed to Basildon Police Station, where he saw a custody sergeant. So with information received, the police pulled over this vehicle containing one of Pat Tate's old friends, which, interestingly enough, was also the person that leased the Range Rover to Peter Cuthbert. But what made the Essex police believe the 3 inside that vehicle had some sort of connection to the murders? And was it just the connection between Barry Dorman and Pat Tate? But what made them arrest them for murder?